Hi, hello. My name is Cleverly Jones, and today we'll be discussing the story of Chris and Shanann Watts. They currently have a documentary on Netflix called American Murder: The Family Next Door. The documentary opens up showing home videos of the family. We're introduced to Shanann's friend, Nicole. Nicole calls the cops to do a welfare check on her friend. Nicole states that she hasn't heard from Shanann, and Shanann was really distraught over the weekend. At this point, Nicole is very distraught, so she contacts Shanann's parents. Her parents give her the code to enter the garage, but the cops say that they still need permission in order to enter, and they need permission from the owners of the home. So the cops wait for Chris to show up. Chris gives permission for the cops to enter the home. Chris advises the cops that Shanann left her phone at home, and then Nicole notices that Shanann also left her purse. So then we start to get a little background about Shanann. We get Shannann's personal story about how she always wanted to be a homeowner, and she tells a story about how she built her first home at the age of 25, and she did it through hard work. There were no shortcuts taken, so she's very proud about doing this. We then hear Shanann talking about how her life took an abrupt turn when she got her lupus diagnosis. I can understand this because I also have lupus, and it does make you question certain things in life and what you hold important, and things that were once important to you are no longer important, so it does make you change your values. Shanann talks about how her diagnosis made her open to meeting Chris. She met Chris through Facebook. Then they fast forward, showing that she had, got married to Chris. They had 2 kids, and she's currently pregnant. Shanann was initially told that she couldn't have children, so her children were very special to her. We cut to a scene where the neighbor is showing the cops surveillance video of the house. He happens to have surveillance cameras set up that were pointing towards Chris's house. The neighbor is also very suspicious of Chris. He said that Chris was loading something in the early morning hours, and he was loading it inside the garage, which is something that he typically doesn't do. On August 14th, Chris gives details to the cops about the kids and Shanann. The officers then bring dogs to the house to go through and sniff and try to find clues, and they remark on how immaculately clean the house is. Now, Chris starts to do news interviews pretty early on in the process, as soon as Shanann goes missing, and to me that's always suspect. Whenever you see the husband just abruptly jumping to do news interviews, we've seen it time and time again where typically that's the person who did it. So I always find that suspicious when somebody is just jumping to do a news interview. I know if I had a loved one missing, that would not be my first priority. I'd rather have legal representation do it or somebody else in the family do it. I would be too concerned about searching for my loved one. I'm not going to sit there and make a press release at that point. So we cut to 7 weeks earlier. This is where Shanann and the kids go to North Carolina to visit her parents. They show a scene where we get Nicole talking about how Shanann had a big fight with Chris's parents. She reports that they didn't show up to Cece's birthday party, and the reason why is because Chris's mother had brought some ice cream, believed that Cece was allergic to, and so Shanann felt very disrespected by her mother-in-law and couldn't believe how careless she was to bring something into the house that her daughter was allergic to. So we get to a scene where Chris is providing different theories to the police. The documentary shows conversations between Chris and Shanann and how Chris has made no attempt to contact the children since they've been gone to North Carolina. And I'm with Shanann on this one. That's a huge red flag that you wouldn't at least call to check on your children. I found that kind of odd and strange. So I see why her spidey senses kind of went up at that point. So in the documentary, they discuss how Chris's family never liked Shanann. They thought that she was bossy and maybe too pushy. So they never really cared for her. We come to a scene where Chris is talking to the cops. The cops ask Chris, did he ever cheat on Shanann? And he tells them no initially. Chris goes on to talk about his weight loss, how he went from 245 pounds to 180 pounds. And he said this helped to build his confidence. The cops also speak to Chris's boss, and his boss states that he has no issues with Chris. He doesn't suspect Chris of doing anything. He did let them know that Chris's job site was at the I believe that's the Sirvi Ranch, where they had oil wells there. So we get to August 15th, and the police keep canvassing the area, passing out flyers looking for Shanann. Chris also takes a polygraph test. He lets the officers know that him and Shanann discussed selling the house and splitting up. Now you can tell during this test that he was very nervous and jumpy, but then I have to think, who wouldn't be nervous and jumpy? You really don't. I mean, you know that it's trying to measure the truth, but you don't know if you're moving in any way, or if your heart rate increases, or any of those things happens, if it'll mess with the test. So I can understand him being nervous at that point. The documentary shows how Shanann thought Chris was cheating. She stated they had been apart for 5 weeks, and Chris made no attempt to be affectionate with her when he saw her. We get the results of the polygraph test, and they show that Chris is lying. At this point, the police urge Chris to come clean. The documentary cuts back to Shanann. Shanann states she notices a change in Chris and him still not showing any affection even when they got back to Colorado. Then the documentary shows Nicole, and this is a different Nicole from Shanann's friend. This is Nicole, who is Chris's girlfriend. She talks about her relationship with Chris and how Chris told her that he was in the process of getting a divorce from his wife, Shanann. Chris finally admits to the cops that he cheated with Nicole, but this is information the cops already knew. They just wanted him to come clean with it. The officers noticed that during the interview, Chris is really emotionless. Yeah, he shows no emotion until he gets to talking about cheating. He didn't cry for his kids. He didn't cry for his wife. Like, he was real cold. The police use another tactic in order to get Chris to confess. They bring in his father, Ronnie Watts. He admits to his father that he failed the polygraph test, but Chris still doesn't tell the whole truth. Chris tells his dad that Shanann hurt the kids, and because she hurt the kids, Chris tells his dad that he hurt Shanann. Now during this scene, I found it weird that the cops rubbed on his back. Like, I always find it weird in any type of police investigation where they show like the cops, being sympathetic or rubbing their back or any of that. It's like, do people really believe that? I mean, I know like people may want to unburden themselves, but do they believe that the cops really care? They're just trying to close their case. So I always find it weird when you see the cop being warm towards the suspect. It's like, you really don't care. You just want to solve your case. So Chris tells his dad that he buried Shanann and placed the kids inside the oil tank. However, the cops aren't fully satisfied with Chris's story. Again, they know that he's still lying, so they still press him out for the truth. The documentary cuts to a scene that is 3 days before their deaths. They show Shanann going to training in Arizona. They show the letters that Shanann wrote to Chris showing how much she missed him and was expressing her love towards him. Then we cut back to the police. The police find Shannann's grave, and the family holds a candlelight vigil for Shanann and the kids. The police continue to interview Nicole, Chris's girlfriend. What I found as strange was the appearance between Nicole and Shanann. They were very similar looking. So I found it weird that Chris would go for someone that looked just like his wife. It's like, why did you even cheat? Like, you could have just stayed with your wife. But Nicole looks very, very similar to Shanann. So the cops put together that Chris went to the Lazy Dog with Nicole. Although he initially lied, and he lied to Shanann and told her that he went by himself, but she knew it was a lie because the bill was too high for one person going out to eat at the Lazy Dog. The documentary shows a scene. It's Shanann's brother, Frankie, and Frankie doesn't believe that Shanann would ever hurt the kids. However, because Shanann was so active on Facebook, people began to see old postings that she had with her and her parenting, and the media began to condemn her and her parenting skills, which I thought was completely wrong. The lady is passed, so kind of let her live. Chris ends up pleading guilty to 9 counts: murder in the first degree of his family, unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and tampering with a body. He finally confesses that he hurt Shanann and that she never hurt the children. He was the one who hurt the kids. He finally confesses. He placed Shanann on the floor of his truck. He strapped the 2 girls in, and the girls were concerned about their mom because she wasn't moving, but he kept telling the girls that their mom would be okay. He buried Shanann and placed the girls inside the oil tanker. After he disposed of his family, he unenrolled the girls from school and contacted a realtor about selling his property. The judge described this best as being a horrible, inhumane crime. Chris receives 3 life sentences. That was the end of this documentary. Make sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. See you soon.